Welcome back to the Jon Krawczynski Show. It is time to ask an existential question. We'll start the show with that. This is the Jon Krawczynski Show, our NBA and Timberwolves show at talknorth.com. Best way to listen to this show or any show on the network. Please subscribe to your favorite podcast app. This show also appears on YouTube if you prefer to access it that way. We're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services Studio, and we are presented by Lexus, Wayzata, and Maplewood. All right, John. Wolves have been struggling. They're without Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels, both of whom are dealing with knee injuries. Is this an existential crisis, or is this just a lull because of a couple of injuries?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more than just a lull. I don't want to go to existential crisis just yet, but it's hard to ignore that this team is not just missing key guys, but they're playing bad basketball in general. They're not really competing at as high of a level as they want to, as Chris Finch wants to. They're making silly mistakes. Dante DiVincenzo is struggling. Rudy Gobert is struggling. Nas Reid is struggling. And so there just seems to be a confluence of a malaise or a confluence of adversity that has hit this team at a very difficult time in the schedule. I do think that getting a healthy Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels back would make an enormous difference and probably be a huge boost to them. But right now, they still have to secure a top 6 seed, and they have to go out and win some games. And with the way they're playing, it's hard to be confident going into any game, let alone, when they're playing really good teams. So they're in a tough spot right now, and they've got to find a way to get back on track and get their spirit back together and start playing better basketball. Because the playoffs are literally right around the corner.
Yes, they are. And while one of my themes of the season has been, hey, almost any spot in the top 6 is fine. Road home hasn't meant that much to the Timberwolves. Now we're seeing that being the 5 seed was probably the way to go, because it looks like the Nuggets are going to be the 3rd seed. They're playing great right now. And the Lakers are suddenly very vulnerable. No Doncic, no Reeves. We don't know if they'll even play in the first round or if they'll be effective if they do play in the first round. Right now, what you want if you're in the Western Conference top 6 is to start off with the Lakers in the playoffs, and they've probably blown that chance.
Yeah, it looks that way. And that kind of gets back to sort of reaping what they have sown, because they had a remarkable stretch of really good health for the first 3.5 months of the season. And they just were never really able to capitalize on that by building any kind of a cushion in the Western Conference. We've talked about it a lot on this show, but they did have an approach to this regular season, like, kind of, can we just hurry up and get this over with and get to the playoffs? And in taking that approach, they dropped plenty of games that they probably should not have dropped. And then when it came down to times where they were having some health issues, now there was no margin for error. And so it very well could have easily been, them in the 4 seed, them in the 3 seed, had they taken care of business when they were healthy, but they just didn't do that. And so now they are going to, it looks like, we'll see, but it looks like today that they're going to play the Denver Nuggets, and Denver is really coming around. They had a really great win, a comeback win against Portland on Monday night in Denver, and they have a couple of injuries of their own, but they are peaking, it seems like, and the Wolves are not. And so they will still be very confident going into a series against Denver because they've beaten them before, but it absolutely would have been a better situation for them to play the Lakers and kind of get almost like a first round bye, and then figure out, what you're going to do against OKC or however that shakes out. But this is really very much a case of the Timberwolves letting really good opportunities slip through their fingers early in the season and kind of taking for granted that they would be okay the whole way through. And now they're scraping by, and it's coming back to bite them.
Let me test a theory on you. What I've seen, against Detroit, against Charlotte the other night, is a team that is actually playing hard and staying in the fight against really good teams. And then they'll hit a stretch sometime in the second half where the other team hits the gas and starts pulling away. And I feel like that's when they really miss Anthony Edwards and maybe Jaden McDaniels too. Just a guy who can take the game on his own shoulders and say, I'm stopping this run. I'm making the big shot. I'm hitting a three with a hand in my face to keep my team in the fight. It's not that they necessarily would have won those games with those guys, but I feel like the junctures at which they were lost is when they missed their stars the most.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think one of the issues that this team has had for a lot of the season is that when things are going poorly, they have a hard time of turning the tide, of like really kind of digging in and fighting back and making things happen. They are, as we've said before, very moody, and so when they're down, they collectively have a hard time of banding together and just turning things around right away. That's one thing that Anthony Edwards can do almost on his own. Like you said, he can hit a contested three. He can get to the rim and get to the free throw line. He can get a stop defensively and just you kind of will the team back into the fight. And so without his sort of emotional lift that he brings with just his dynamic play, they are struggling to find another source of that energy. And then I do think, Jim, that missing Jaden McDaniels, we're seeing obviously things defensively that we knew, but offensively, they just miss another guy who can dribble into the paint, rise up over someone and knock down a shot, can get out in transition and score and just stop the bleeding. And so, they're 1-4 without Jaden McDaniels. And I don't think that's a coincidence because he was giving them a lot of value on both sides of the court. And so you're essentially saying probably two of their top three players are out, and it's been really, really hard for them to manufacture what both Edwards and McDaniels provide from a spiritual standpoint and just from an overall kind of talent standpoint. And they're really struggling to kind of figure a way through that without those guys.
Let's talk about the injuries in a second. Reminder, lots of shows at TalkNorth.com. John and I do the Viking Update show. Sometimes Alec Lewis, who does his own Viking show on the network, joins us for the Viking Update show to do kind of a roundtable. We have Roy Smalley, Lavelle E. Neal, myself on the Twins. We'll probably be doing some live shows at Target Field this year. Come out and check that out. Russo and LaPanta on hockey. Don Mitchell's guest this week, Leah B. Olson. A lot of basketball talk, a lot of women's basketball talk, college, pros, CBA, links, the draft, all that. Check it all out at TalkNorth.com. If you like outdoor content, we have fishing, hunting, all that stuff as well, in conjunction with Ron Shera Productions. So check it out. We would appreciate it. So what's the outlook for these injuries? Are these more serious than we initially thought?
Well, I think that for the Jaden McDaniels one, I don't think it's more serious. I think that there still is a hope that before the season is over, he might be able to get a game or two in, or if not, by the start of the playoffs, he should be in really good shape with that bone bruise on his knee. Kind of a point of context, he was on the road trip last week with the Timberwolves, which I took as a very good sign because I think if he was really in pain, if he was really needing advanced and aggressive rehab and treatment of the injury, he would have stayed home like Anthony Edwards did during his time. And so just him being around the team as much as he has been, I think is a bright spot. And I do think that there still is a chance for him to be back before the regular season is over. If it doesn't, he'll have a full week to get ready for playoffs, assuming again that they do make the 6th seed. Ant is a little bit more complex. Kind of once, Jim, that he missed the game in Detroit because of illness, in Detroit because of illness, then tried to play in Philadelphia and struggled. When he was struggling, I was in Philadelphia and I was talking to people around the team, and he was really, really sick. And so I looked at that performance as, well, you know what? He was just really feeling terrible. And so that's what led to the struggles. I think he was 3 for 14 from the field, something like that, and really struggled. And then, we come around to Sunday and against Charlotte, and he's listed as out again. And that didn't actually surprise me. I was kind of thinking that he would sit out that game possibly because of the illness, but the illness wasn't the factor on Sunday. It was the knee that he is still working through. And so once he missed that game, it really did cause me to kind of do a little more digging on exactly what he is experiencing. And basically, he has the same injury that Steph Curry has this year, and that caused Steph Curry to miss 27 games. And if you listen to Curry talk about the injury, and you talk to people who know this thing that's called runner's knee, essentially, there's nothing structurally wrong with his knee, so he's not in danger. His ligaments are fine. He has a lot of things going just fine for him, but there is an inflammation that causes real pain in the knee. And the most frustrating thing for people who have this injury is that the pain can sort of come and go. The recovery is not linear. And so one day you can get up out of bed and you can feel really good and feel like it's going to be just fine. It's clear that's the way it was when he was playing in Dallas. He looked really good in that game and played through and said he felt really good afterward. But then it can flare up the next day and you can be in a lot of pain and really struggling with it. And so everyone within the Wolves and within the Edwards camp still maintains a high level of optimism that he's going to be able to manage through this in the playoffs and he will be able to play and things will be okay. But when it does have this kind of unpredictability to it, I do think that it is a different animal in terms of trying to interpret what it's going to mean, what he's going to experience, and how it's going to be treated. And so I think that is something that is just a little harder to predict. Again, it's not catastrophic. I don't think we're getting close to like it being season ending or anything like that. From what I've been told, he doesn't need surgery or anything right now. But it is a very finicky injury, and how he deals with it and how the medical staff helps him through it is just going to be crucial to their chances of having any success in the postseason.
That's a little worrisome.
It is.
That's something
Yeah.
legitimate to worry about. All the things the fans worry about, that's really a big deal.
It is. Like, look, I mean, again, like to reiterate, this does not at this stage where we're at, it doesn't pretend to be degenerative. It doesn't pretend to be something that long term is going to be just a real issue for him. But it is clearly very painful to him. And this is a guy who has shown throughout his career the ability to play through injury and to show toughness and to recover quickly. And so when there is a bit of a stop and start like this, yes, it should be concerning about like where he's going to be for the immediate future and how they navigate this, given that, he's not just their most important player right now, he's their most important player for the next 10 years. And so what do they do to kind of take care of him? One thing I will tell all Wolves fans and all amateur sports doctors out there in my mentions is that they would not clear him to play if they thought that he was in danger of a significant catastrophic injury. It does not mean that he will not have one, but the Wolves are taking all of the care they need to work through this with the long term in mind. With he is the face of their franchise. He is the most important thing that they have going right now at any level of this organization. And so they're going to do the right thing for Anthony Edwards, and Anthony Edwards is going to do the right thing for himself, with the long term in mind. But, everyone does expect him to be okay by the playoffs. We still just have to see it, though.
Yes. Hey, let's remind everybody that we're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services studio.
When something goes wrong at home, Aquarius Home Services makes the solution easy with one call to one team and no hassle to find a different handyman or company for each type of job. Aquarius has experts in heating, cooling, plumbing, and electrical. That means you get the right expert every time and solutions you can trust. Right now, enjoy $98 off any heating, cooling, plumbing, or electrical repair. Aquarius, one call, problem solved. Earning the right to be recommended. Schedule today at AquariusHomeservices.com.
And let's hear more about Lexus of Wayzata and Maplewood.
If you're in the market for a new luxury vehicle, look no further than our good friend Charlie Swanson at Lexus. Whether you're on the west or the east side of the Twin Cities, they've got you covered with two great locations, Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. Check out the all-new Lexus TX, a spacious SUV with 3 rows of seating and plenty of room for all your gear. Head over to lexusofwayzata.com or lexusofmaplewood.com for details and to find your next ride today.
So you've given us your view of what's going on with the team. What do you think the mood is for Finch and the players? Is there worry, concern, anxiety, eagerness to get to the playoffs? How would you describe it?
Yeah, I would describe it right now not as like worry, but as frustration. I think everyone in there, in the locker room, on the coaching staff, is just frustrated with how they're playing right now. In particular, the most maddening part of this latest stretch has been their 3-point shot has just abandoned them, like, completely. They made some shots in the first half against Charlotte. Second half, they were like 4 for 17. Of course, missing Edwards and McDaniels, 2 of their best 3-point shooters, is a big problem. But I think the more troubling thing is that they are actually generating pretty good shots. Nas Reid, Dante DiVincenzo, Mike Conley, like, all these guys are getting really good open looks. And Conley is really the only one that's knocking down shots with any regularity right now in the last couple of games. And man, that's a real concern, because for most of this season, they've been one of the better 3-point shooting teams in the league, top 5 in 3-point percentage. And that really was sort of the engine of their offense. When they shoot the ball well from 3, they're very good. When they don't shoot the ball well from 3, especially without Anthony Edwards there to create his own shot, they just really have a hard time manufacturing offense. And so you can definitely feel a bit of tension in the locker room in terms of, like, gritting their teeth and trying to find a way through this right now. And I do think that Chris Finch is also gritting his teeth and trying to find his way through it too. And right now they need some sort of pressure release. And in the absence of a player who has the ability to get in the room and just calm everyone down, Chris Finch has to be the one to figure out some messaging, whether it's taking them bowling for a night or Top Golf, or like getting them out of their own heads for a minute. Something needs to happen to do that. And I don't know what the answer is. I don't know, how they go about it, but everyone is brooding right now, and that's not helping anyone. And so they're going to have to do more than just wait for Ant and Jaden to come back. They've got to find a way to address kind of what is ailing them on the mental side of things, and then maybe that will alleviate some of the physical struggles that they're having right now.
And overtly, one of the most moody players on this team seems to be Nas Reid. Any signs of him coming around? Any clues to what might be bugging him?
Yeah, like I spoke to him at length in Detroit after a pretty good game that he played, and he played fairly well in Dallas as well. And it seemed like maybe there was a little corner that was being turned, and he was very candid with me about his struggles. His shoulder is hurting him, and it has really affected his shot for the last month or so, at least since the All-Star break. And so his 3-point shot is really struggling, and you can see him. He grabs at it throughout the game. He's doing this. And so even if it's not like a torn labrum or something like that, there is something bothering him in that shoulder that is then now bothering him in his head. And And that's been a very difficult thing for him to work through. There could possibly be other things that he is dealing with. Certainly the loss of his sister, at the start of the season was a traumatic thing. I don't know if there's other things that are going on in his life that he's just navigating, but you can watch him play and you can see that there's a cloud over his head. And it may mostly be the physical injuries that he's trying to gut through, or there may be other things, but it is absolutely sort of sapping him of that electricity that he always brings to this team. And forever and ever, he has been the Wolves cheat code. He's this ultra talented, big dude that comes off the bench and just kind of drops the hammer on second units. And right now he's not doing that. He had an open 3-pointer in the corner against Charlotte on Sunday and it went off the side of the backboard. And so that's the kind of stuff that tells you that he is really, really struggling. And so they have to find a way to get him back to as close to Nas Reid as he can be in the playoffs, because when he is rolling, they are a different team. But right now, he is really deep in the hole and trying to find his way out of it. And I think that there's a number of factors that are kind of leading to that, that sense of lost feeling that it looks like he has out on the court.
Well, Steve Terry, partner in the face of TSR Injury Law, incredibly successful business because he helped so many people. Friend of the Jon Krawczynski Show, guest of the Jon Krawczynski Show, but now he's really reached his career pinnacle, I believe. I was at a Timberwolves game recently, and Steve Terry was out there as the celebrity judge for the hamster ball contest. I mean, I think he's gotten too big for us, John.
Well, and also his Michigan Wolverines just won the national title too. So
Good point.
I mean,
so he's taking the month off.
Yeah. He is at on top of the world, and so if he can find a way to get his Timberwolves going, I mean, there's just going to be, you can't tell him anything anymore.
Could we ever though?
Yeah, that's true. Very, very, very good point.
The important thing here is if you ever are injured, you're going to want Steve Terry's help, TSR Injury Law's help. Call 612-TSR-TIME, 612-TSR-TIME. Also, we want to tell you about True Vision Institute.
True Vision Institute in Bloomington. If you're watching this on our YouTube channel, please like and subscribe, but also just please like my look without glasses. It's just been almost 2 years now without glasses and without the hassles of contacts, thanks to the good folks at True Vision. I went to truevision.com, filled out the questionnaire, set up an appointment to go in and go through all of the process of finding the right vision correction method for me. I chose LASIK surgery from Dr. Chu, and it was life-changing. It was wonderful. I can jump into a pool without having to worry about taking my contacts out or being able to see with glasses off. I can take a shower and read the conditioner and shampoo bottles and know which one is which because I have this LASIK surgery. It's been just a wonderful thing. I've told you before, the people at True Vision take immaculate care of you. They lead you from start to finish through the entire process and get you out on the other side of it. And I can't recommend them enough. So if you go to truevision.com, set up your consultation, go to visit the good folks at True Vision in Bloomington and get started with your vision correction today.
Jim Peterson said something interesting on the broadcast the other night. He said that there are times when Rudy Gobert doesn't go for a block and that bothers some of his teammates. It was an example of a Charlotte player spun away from his defender. I think went up for just basically kind of a floater, and Rudy kind of braced himself to jump and didn't brace. And then Jim went on to explain that sometimes Rudy doesn't want to go for the block because it'll leave either an offensive rebound or a lob opportunity behind him. What do you think is going on there?
Yeah, I will say this. I do think that Rudy right now is bearing the brunt of the frustrations of the team in general, just because they're all frustrated at each other for not playing well. And so sometimes they take it out more on Rudy than they do on other. You can see it. We've seen the clips where he misses a layup and Jaden McDaniels is throwing a towel in the air. Or like some people are covering their faces and things like that. And I get that. I do think in defense of Rudy Gobert, he, like you said, Jim, he is having to do almost everything on the defensive end, including protect the rim, including grab defensive rebounds, because they are getting murdered on a nightly basis on the offensive glass. And so there's a lot of responsibility on his shoulders. Now, he will tell you he needs to be better at it, and I think he's right. Like, I think there were too many times in that Charlotte game where there was a smaller player who was able to kind of outfox Rudy for an offensive rebound and create another shot, and it usually ended up with the Hornets 3. And so those are back-breaking possessions, and it is true that Rudy needs to be better in that area, but he also needs more help. Dante DiVincenzo has 2 rebounds in the last 3 games. Like, that's just unfathomable. Julius Randle has done some good rebounding, but he needs just go get 10, Julius. Like, Ayo Dosunmu in Dallas, the last time they played well, had 15 rebounds, and he was playing the 3 for Jaden McDaniels. Like, does he need 15 every night? No, but like, you need 4 or 5 guys to get 5, 6, 8 rebounds to help Rudy. And if he feels less kind of responsible for every defensive rebound, then he can maybe be a little bit more aggressive in chasing shot blocking opportunities. And so I think right now where Rudy is struggling the most is offensively. I think that when he does have a turnover, when he does miss a layup, when he does, just kind of make those ugly mistakes we've talked about before, I think it's wearing on everyone a little bit more because they know there's just not much margin for error without Ant and Jaden around to help them. And so it was really interesting to me after the Charlotte game, Jim. Rudy is always one of the most thoughtful, open interviews on the team. And a lot of his answers after that game were short and very un-Rudy-like. And so that tells me that he is also frustrated with all of the things that he's seen. And he sees the clips online of his teammates, grimacing over some of his mistakes and stuff like that. And I think that stings him. And so he does need to play better for sure. But I think that everyone around him needs to play better as well. And I think that it's Rudy's sort of temperament right now is reflective of this team as a whole, because I can count on one hand the number of times in the last 4 years where he's been, not very talkative or pretty short with his interviews. And that was one of them against Charlotte. And that tells me that there's more going on there, and that this is more than just a little rough patch that all these guys are navigating.
In the last segment, let's get to Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Matt Lloyd, and our Twitter question sponsored by sglambchops.com. And I've been wearing my sglambchops.com sweats and t-shirt. My wife's been wearing her puffy jacket. I'm hoping I won't need the winter cap for much longer, but it's been just really comfortable stuff.
It's great. Go to sglambchops.com, Jim. Put in the promo code JONK20 for 20% off anything that you get at Lamb Chops. It is the most comfortable and stylish casual wear you can get. I have a couple of hoodies. I have some shorts. I have t-shirts. I have a couple of sweaters actually that I wear to games because you can dress up with Lamb Chops clothing as well. And what you get there is you get a local company that is really invested in this community, that creates really high quality stuff that's affordable. You buy these clothes and you have the feel, and you put it on, you know that this stuff is going to last you for years and years. You can look good in the North Loop on a Friday night. You can wear it to a Timberwolves game, as I do. You can wear it just lounging around the house while you're watching basketball and be incredibly comfortable. They've got everything you need at Lamb Chops. Go to sglambchops.com. Use the promo code JONK20 for 20% off anything you get at the store.
So it seemed really logical they would let, that Nickeil Alexander-Walker would be the person on the way out. Can't pay everybody. Nas Reid, the 6th man of the year. Something had to give. But man, he has played tremendous basketball in Atlanta. Do you think there are any regrets that he was the one they let go?
Well, I think it's a really important conversation to have right now because Nikhil has been awesome for Atlanta. And there is no one happier than I am because he's like one of my all-time favorite people that I've covered. He's so thoughtful. He worked so hard. He really came up from really the edges of the league to establish himself first with the Wolves as a critical piece. And now he's taken a leap this year with Atlanta. One of the things that I have seen kind of in reaction to that among Wolves fans is that because he is playing so well there, it's automatically that the Timberwolves were idiots for letting him go, that anyone could have seen that he was capable of this and before, and Chris Finch just didn't give him the opportunity. And here's the reality of the situation is the reason that he is in this success right now is two reasons. First and foremost, Nickeil Alexander-Walker has put in all of the work and he deserves all of the credit for developing himself to a point where he is getting this opportunity to be a borderline star player for a team that's winning a ton of games. Secondly, he would not have this opportunity if Chris Finch and this coaching staff didn't help develop him when they got him, didn't get him to a point where he was a 6th, 7th man on a team that was going to the Western Conference Finals 2 seasons in a row. And he really repaired his standing in the league by getting the opportunity that he got in Minnesota. And I've had a conversation with Nickeil earlier this year, and no one is more surprised that he has reached this level than Nickeil himself. Like, he is very open about, I wasn't sure if I was capable of this. I thought I had this role carved out for me, and that was what it was going to be. And I kind of wondered if I was worth all of this money that they gave me and all of this stuff. He was having all these doubts. And I guarantee you, Jim, that when he left, of course, people were sad to see him go, but most Timberwolves fans saw him play very, very well and then understood the landscape of what choice the Timberwolves had and said, man, I hate to see him go, but I understand it. And now it's revisionist history of, nope, I couldn't believe they let him go. The reason they let him go was because they had to essentially choose two of Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Nas Reid, Julius Randle. They looked at their roster and they felt that they had more depth on the wing to absorb Nickeil's loss. With Dante DiVincenzo, with Rob Dillingham, with Terrence Shannon Jr., with Jalen Clark, they figured that we have less depth behind in the front court, behind Randle and Nas Reid. And so we're going to make the hard choice, which every team in the league has to make hard choices under this salary cap structure, and say, see you later, Nickeil. Very sorry to see you go. But this is going to open up opportunities for Rob Dillingham, open up opportunities for Terrence Shannon Jr., for Jalen Clark, and for Dante DiVincenzo even more. And we're just going to go forward, and we're going to keep Nas Reid, who everyone loves, and Julius Randle, who was so instrumental in the playoff run last year. As it worked out, Rob Dillingham didn't pan out. Terrence Shannon Jr. has been hurt a lot. Jalen Clark's offense is kind of stagnated, so he's been a little less playable than I think people had hoped. And Nickeil has exploded. And the other one is Mike Conley. Really, his age is really shown. So is really proven that there's not a whole lot left in the tank there. So a lot of things that they couldn't anticipate or that they planned for did not work out the way that they did. And to Nickeil's credit, he has exploded in Atlanta. So right now it looks like they made a mistake. But if you go back to the way that the logic was worked out in real time, and the decision they had to make, it made a lot of sense for them to do that. And so that's what this new economic reality is in the NBA, is teams have to make really hard choices and sometimes. And so they made that choice. And finally, Nas Reid is hurt, guys. He's struggling because he is hurt. And so if Nas Reid was his typical 6th man of the year, super dynamic self that he was the first few months of the season, a lot of this angst would not be there as well. So they've had some bad luck, and they've had some things not go their way in it, and Nikhil has done an amazing job. And so hindsight is, not 2020, it's 2030 or whatever it is I got from LASIK at U Vision. Like it's like that's what's going on right now. But it was just a confluence of events that way. And so you have to look at the context in which the decision was made and not just what has happened in the months since that.
The Bulls suddenly have some openings in the front office. Could that affect the Timberwolves?
It could, Jim. I mean, first you may hear a little bit of, again, we talked last week about Tim Conley being linked to Dallas. You may hear his name come up in Chicago as well. I would be shocked if the Bulls would pay the salary that it would take to get him. But I think another name who is going to emerge in there is Matt Lloyd, and Matt Lloyd is the Timberwolves general manager. He's incredibly highly thought of here in Minnesota. Everyone loves him. He's really well thought of around the league, has a lot of great relationships and contacts. And he got his start with the Bulls as a PR intern in the Jordan era Bulls, worked his way up to the scouting side, worked under Jerry Krause, knows John Paxson really, really well. And then kind of that was his entry point to work his way up the ladder, went to Orlando, then came to Minnesota here. And now he's a really highly thought of general manager who has started to interview for positions to run his own front office somewhere. And he was close in Charlotte, had a little bit of interest in Denver. There's been other organizations that have been interested in him. And so Chicago would make a ton of sense for Matt Lloyd because he has deep roots in that area, a lot of familiarity with the ownership, with the team, with the fans, with all of that. And so we'll see how it all plays out. We'll see what exactly that the Bulls are looking for. But I would expect Matt Lloyd's name to emerge, pretty quickly as a prominent one kind of in that search.
Interesting. All right, let's get to our sglambchops.com Twitter question of the week. Reminder, we have pretty much every sport covered at talknorth.com. We have hunting and fishing, outdoor stuff. Also, we're going to be adding some shows here, so keep an eye on talknorth.com as we grow. And now the Twitter question sponsored by SG Lamb Chops.
Yeah, so I think let's go with Sam Lohr. Mike Conley recently wrote an article in The Athletic about his mentality with calls and why he's never gotten a technical in his I think it's 18 years in the league. Mike is a respected leader on this team. Can you comment on how his mentality has or hasn't transferred to the rest of the team? It's a really good question. Mike is invaluable in that locker room. He is as respected as any player in that locker room up and down the roster. They were all ecstatic when he came back after getting traded away and got bought out by Charlotte and then came back to Minnesota. And so, but there is only so much that he can do right now. I think he is certainly a valuable voice behind the scenes, trying to help people, trying to steady the ship in these rough waters. But, he is also kind of on the tail end of his career, and he's playing less and has been less effective. And so sometimes that voice doesn't resonate quite as much as when he was the starting point guard on this team. I think that you will still, when you walk into the locker room, you will see Anthony Edwards talking to Mike Conley after every game, kind of going through what Mike Conley saw, what he should have done, what they can do going forward. I'll give you a quick story on this. We were in Dallas, and it was for Anthony Edwards' first game back from injury, and Ant and Mike Conley's lockers were right next to each other. And I'm interviewing him after the game and asked him, hey, like, what did you see kind of in your time away? And Ant literally looked at Mike while I was interviewing him and said, Mike, can I talk about this? And Ant said, yeah, or Mike said, yeah, you're telling the truth. Like, just let it have it. And so then he went into this very thoughtful explanation of how he saw what the team needed while he was gone and where he could help and fill in. And that's just the presence that Mike has. Now, it's much more subtle right now, I think, than overt, because I think this team right now needs some overt leadership as well, like from guys like whether it's Randall or Kyle Anderson or Bones, Highland, or anyone who's just in the fight right now has to really kind of step up as well. But he is definitely more of a quiet leader behind the scenes, but still incredibly valuable, just in a different way than he was, earlier on in his tenure with the Timberwolves.
Good stuff, John. I appreciate it. Please, everybody, check out the Jon Krawczynski Show, as well as the Viking Update Show. This week, Alec Lewis will be joining the roundtable on that. We appreciate everybody who watches, who listens, and we will talk to you next week.